Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Becoming More Me. I'm your host, Theresa Levine, and this is the podcast where we dive into the art of becoming your truest self and unraveling the layers of who you are, reclaiming your inner wisdom, and living a life that feels beautifully aligned. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Diane Dempster, who is not only the co-founder, coach, and COO at Impact Parents, but also someone who's passionately helping parents navigate the wild world of raising complex kids, especially those with ADHD. And she's got a world of insight and resources to share, including some coaching for me and my family around dinner time. So stay tuned because it all starts now. Hey, Diane, thank you so much for joining me today for the Becoming More Me podcast. I'm glad you're here.
I'm excited to talk to you, Theresa. Thanks.
Yeah, I always enjoy talking to you. And I would love to start off on a personal note instead of leading with business. So when you're not busy with the work that you're so passionate about with Impact Parents, who are you spending your downtime with? What do you find pleasure in doing? Any pastimes, hobbies? What does Diane like to do?
Oh my gosh, that's a really good question. Thanks for that. So I live with my partner Brian. We've been together for about 7 years. We live with a dog and a cat. That's kind of how we spend our days. He travels a lot, so I spend a lot of my time with the dog and the cat. What I do with my time, I'm one of those sort of get up in the morning and go out and sit on the porch with the birds and start my day with either just listening to the birds or doing a little meditation or a little grounding or something. I'm still working on creating those habits. Sometimes I do a little tapping depending on kind of how I wake up in the morning.
Good call.
I have 3 adult kids. None of them live with me anymore. They're all on adventures, and so I connect with them, and I have grandkids now. Wow. I'm suddenly aging myself. I'm an outdoors woman generally. I love my garden. I love hiking. I've been this is maybe TMI, but I've been kind of incapacitated. I had some surgery on an ankle. I fractured my ankle
Oh,
hiking about 12 months ago.
oh,
And so it's been a rough 12 months. And when hiking is one of your hobbies and you can't do it, it makes it hard.
yeah. I mean, at least
But
you broke it doing or crushed it or whatever you did to it, doing something that you enjoyed versus something really mundane.
oh yeah, it's funny. Whenever somebody has an injury, my favorite thing to ask them is like, so were you doing something fun or were you doing something kind of ridiculous? So, what happened? And no, yeah, so it's been about 12 months and I'm getting to the place where I'm more mobile and back to enjoying being out in nature as much as I can.
I love that. And such a gorgeous time of year. Where do you live?
I live outside of Atlanta. I live in Decatur, Georgia. So it's not
Gotcha.
quite, it feels like winter today. We're recording this so at the end of October. It'll be great, crisp weather for Halloween, but it could be 90 tomorrow, or it could be 30 tomorrow.
Exactly. I mean, we're both East Coasters. I'm up the coast in Maryland. I was just going to comment on how gorgeous the fall leaves are right now because I'm really enjoying those right now.
We're not
So,
there yet.
yeah,
We'll
not
get there
quite in
around
Georgia.
Thanksgiving. So
Yeah, awesome. So, I'd love to hear a bit about your journey and what led you to where you are now as involved with you are as Impact Parents. So, you also have ADHD
I do
and
not also have
no?
ADHD. No,
Okay.
I'm theoretically the backstory. So
That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
yeah,
Backstory.
no worries, no worries. And I'll talk a little bit about my neurospiciness. Um, so um, I was one of those type A, get it done, make it happen humans in my
Hmm.
20s and 30s,
Me too.
and was gifted with kids who were, now I know, neurospicy, but back then it was kind of quirky-ish kind of stuff. And I found myself getting frustrated more than I wanted to be. I
Mm.
call myself a recovering yelling mom, and wear that label proudly because it's like something I've been working on and owning. And I think that a lot of parents feel a lot of guilt and shame around that sort of thing. And
Mm.
it's not that I think it's okay to yell, but I know that it's
No,
normal and natural to yell, and that might
I
be
can
part of
relate
what
to
we talk
that.
about.
I've been there too.
And I knew my kids' brains worked different than mine did, but I didn't know how to help them. And I became what I call like super mom, like executive function mom. I was like doing everything for everybody, kind of pulling them along, making it all happen. And it was exhausting and frustrating. And about this time, my middle kid was diagnosed with ADHD. I left a corporate position and went into coaching, and was trying to figure out kind of as a new coach, where did I want to go? What did I want to land on? And had a connection to my now business partner, Elaine Taylor Klaus. And the International ADHD Conference was in Atlanta. And I wanted to go as a mom. Part of what I wanted to do at the time is to get some parent training. Recommended
Mhm.
treatment if you have a kid who has ADHD is to get parent training. And so I was thinking about maybe becoming a parent trainer or doing some of that and adding that to my toolbox.
Yeah.
And so, long story short, Elaine and I met, and what we recognized at the time is that there wasn't a lot of support for parents, right? It's just sort of the work that we do now didn't exist 15 years ago when this was going on.
So true.
And so we were like, okay, as coaches, so I became a coach. She was already a coach. And what we recognized is that when we became coaches, we became much stronger parents. And it
Mhm.
wasn't rocket science. And so, and the other thing is that it worked for me, executive function mom, and it worked for her, who is identifies as a neurospicy human. She's got several diagnoses, was diagnosed later in life, has learning differences, those sorts of things. But the tools that we learned in coaching worked for her and they worked for me. And we said, well, what if we helped parents? What if we, and what we do now is we teach neuro-informed coaching tools to parents. So not so that neuro-informed, neurodiversity informed, right? And so
Oh,
not because we want our kids to become, their parents to become our kids' coaches, but because coaching is an empowerment based modality. And ultimately, what we want is these kids to see their strengths, understand their challenges, step in and begin to self manage when they can, and ultimately launch successful, independent young adults when they get to the other side.
definitely.
I do not identify officially as neurodiverse. I don't have any diagnoses. And what I would tell you is that there's a difference between neurodiverse, which means all of our brains work differently, and
Yes.
neurodivergent, which is a word I don't actually like, which means that there's a group of people that their brains like officially work differently. And what I've come to learn, yes, those there are diagnoses that lead to executive function challenges and emotional regulation challenges. And all of us as humans, when we're overwhelmed, when we're stressed, when we're under the strain of a big emotion, show up as neurodiverse, right? And so understanding that if you're a stressed out menopausal single mom, which is what I was for many years, you look real. My kids used to accuse me of being ADHD, but it was really the stress and the overwhelm which caused my brain and my body to respond in a different way than it would if I'm relaxed and downregulated and navigating life from a more
Absolutely.
grounded place, right?
Absolutely. I know a lot of people that come into my world do so in that perimenopausal time period when there's a lot of confusion. Is it ADHD? Is it hormones? Like, what's happening? I think there's a lot of misdiagnosis that happens during that time too, when people aren't fully exploring both of those ends of the, it's not really
Well,
a
and I think
spectrum
that
there, but
that's,
both
I
of those
mean,
things.
we could have a conversation about the value of diagnoses. Actually, we've got a podcast episode on our podcast, Parenting with Impact. Here, I got my mug.
There you
Parenting
go.
with Impact is our podcast, but there's an episode about the what's important about a diagnosis. And as an adult, a lot of people are like, wow, my life makes sense now. It feels really good to have a diagnosis. Some other people are like, well, my brain is my brain. I love my brain, and I just want to help support my brain to
Yeah.
be as effective as it can. And so everybody's in a different place with regard to diagnoses.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. In some ways, it's empowering, and in other ways, it can be a little bit of a downer. And,
Sure.
it is what it is. But I'm grateful for the data, I suppose, if there's going to be anything.
Yeah.
And also, as a mom of four boys myself, and, most of them are still living under our roof with us. And all have an ADHD diagnosis.
Okay.
I would love to dive into like what kind of like strategies and things you like to offer parents in these situations. For me, I notice that each one of them is so different in the way that things present and in the challenges that we've had. So that makes it extra, I guess, complex. It's not like I figured it out with the first one and now I know what to do, but that's with anything with kids, right? So,
Well, and I think that that's part of what makes what we do pretty unique, right? It's just sort of, there's a lot of places to go where you're reading a book or listening to a podcast or whatever, and they're like, well, if this happens, do this. If you this happens, do that. I remember when my kids were growing up, 1, 2, 3 magic was the thing to do with kids, and not making it good or bad because I know that it works for a lot of people really well. And what I found with my neurospicy kids, it didn't work the same way, right? And
Mm-mm.
so what happens is that today it worked and tomorrow it doesn't, and I don't understand. And part of what makes ADHD so particularly so challenging is the inconsistency. And it doesn't make sense to us because most of us want a formula. It's like, well, if this happens, I do this and then it fixes it. And the reality is that it's not that simple, because part of what goes on in the brain and the body is that if I've got more dopamine and a more balanced brain, I'm going to behave differently, or be able to engage differently than I can if I'm exhausted or low energy, or what, not enough dopamine, whatever
Sure.
it is that's causing it. I'm going to behave differently. And so what I like about our approach is that it is about an approach, and not just about a bunch of strategies. It doesn't mean we don't share strategies all the time, but it's
Right.
really about saying, okay, what's the problem I'm looking at? What's the change I want to see? What's really going on underneath it? And what do I want to experiment with to try to figure out what might work now, more often, those sorts of things. And I think the other piece of it that is important is that it's a relationship first model, which means that we're trying to connect with our kids, to partner with them as much as we can, to really work to solve the problems, for a couple of reasons. One is because, as I mentioned earlier, we want them to turn into adults that can self manage and not have to rely on somebody else to help them get it done.
Right.
And these kids want agency. They want to own their world, particularly as they get older. Kids are really good about having somebody tell them what to do when they're really little, but I don't know, somewhere between six. I mean, I don't know how old yours are,
I was going to
Teresa.
say, I don't feel like any of my kids have ever really loved being told what to do at any age.
Well, but I don't mean told what to do, but it's kind of this sort of, I can be like, okay, sweetie, let's go do blah. And they're like, okay,
Right.
mom, right. It's this sort of, there's this motivation to go along with the crowd, or to do what mom asks you. And at some point that motivation shifts, because as humans, we evolve and we want to have more agency in our life. And so
Yeah.
we talk about four roles of the parent: the director, the collaborator, the supporter, and the champion. And we all know what director is. I'm in the lead. I'm driving what's making it happen. Even if I'm trying to get you involved, I'm still the one in the lead. And as our kids get older, or as they develop a need for more agency, that director doesn't work. And so what we hope will happen at that point is that our kids will be able to step up, and we can go, okay, great, you're in the lead. But if you've got a kid with ADHD or anxiety, or autism or learning differences, you might have a kid who wants to be more independent than they're able to be. And that's typically what happens with these kids. And so we have to find ways to be supportive and not take over, and give them as much agency as they can handle. And oh, by the way, a lot of these kids don't want to need help. And so it becomes a little bit more complicated. So long story short, that you said strategies. I mean, it's really about making sure you're connecting with your kid, making sure that you're really looking at what is going on underneath the situation and not just on the face of it,
Right.
and experimenting, right? It's just sort of really being able to say, okay, so it may not work the same way every time, but what
Hmm.
are all the tools in my toolbox, instead of just what do I do when this happens? Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. So when people are working with you or the coaches at Impact Parents, are you giving them specific guidance in the different situations that they are in?
So what we do is we teach them an action model, and the action model is, you take aim, you get really clear about what you're looking at, you get curious about what's going on, you look at it from several different directions. We call it the four cornerstones. So you're going to look at what's going on in the brain, either from an executive function perspective or from a dysregulation perspective. You're going to look at positivity, and from a relationship perspective, what's an important lens to keep an eye on from that perspective. We're going to look at setting realistic expectations. One of the things I don't know that we haven't said, but if you've got a kid with executive function challenges, they're often 3 to 5 years behind their peers in some areas of development where they may be gifted and above graded level in other
Hmm.
areas. And so we've got to figure out, well, even though they're really super smart, they may not have the skills to be organized or to get things going and start. And then the fourth thing is about setting up systems and structures. And so, yes, we teach strategies and approaches, and we could probably take a particular issue. And I would love to kind of hear a common challenge that you have in your house, Theresa, and walk you through it. But it's really about how do you look at what's going on and how do you figure out what to try in the context of what you think is really going on underneath it.
Yeah, I love that. I can give you one that's probably happens for a lot of people because I'd love it if it helps, more than just me
Yeah, yeah,
because I
yeah.
got some weird specific stuff too. But I would say dinner time. So we're a family that tries our darndest to all, get around the dinner table for dinner and eat together. And that means that sometimes it's not that dinner is always at the same time, right? So it's not like dinner's every night at 6. It kind of
Hmm.
depends on when does my husband get home? When does my work schedule end? When are we going to be able to actually get dinner on the table? And that kind of thing. We do try to give the kids warning because usually they're either, finishing up some homework if they have it, or more likely they've gotten through that. And then before dinner, they're like decompressing. They're either like getting a little bit of exercise or they're like on a screen
Hmm.
doing video games or
Yeah.
something like that. So knowing that sometimes like my 15-year-old loves to play video games with his friends. So he's got his headset on and he's like in the middle of stuff together. And so does my 8-year-old too. He loves to do like interactive games. So always trying to kind of give them like, hey, we're going to have dinner in 15 minutes. But I think the time awareness is not always there as far as, counting down to something. And then there can be a little bit of frustration when and we try to get them in to help us too. So it's like, come set the table, come do this, come do that. But oftentimes nobody actually ends up in the kitchen until we've already kind of taken care of it all and dinner's ready. So it's not always the best start for family time.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. So let's get really clear. You're describing all the things that get in the way of the dinner time start. Is the problem you're trying to solve that you want to have everybody land together, or are you really trying to get them to help with what's going on getting ready for dinner?
I mean, in a perfect world, we'd say come into the kitchen and they would just come right away, right? Like that would be the perfect thing. But I'm trying to respect that everybody has their own thing going on. So it's like within a 5 to 10 minute time frame, yes, getting them into the kitchen to facilitate the chores and the things that make dinner happen, be part of that, eat together, and then clean up together, which is another challenge.
So I'm going to narrow you in even further because getting them in a 5 to 10 minute time frame is very, very, very specific. And so if you knew, okay, I want to be able to get them to the table when dinner's ready, right? And let's not say within a 10 to 15 minute timeline because we honestly don't know how long it might take, right? This kid might need 30 minutes to transition. This kid might need 4 minutes to transition. Kid might be already sitting at the table because they're ready and they're reading a book at the table, right?
Hmm.
And so if we say what I'm taking aim, I'm getting clear on what can I do to try to improve getting everybody to the table more efficiently and at a time that makes sense for everybody. And I know that seems vague, but you told me that you didn't want to have a particular time. And so we're in this sort of time looseness piece of it,
Well,
right?
I mean, each day they're going to know kind of when it is. Like
Okay.
today, I can tell you my husband's going to be home early. It's probably going to be like 5:45. We'll
Okay.
probably.
So getting them to the table on time.
Have you joined the Becoming More Me community over on School yet? It is one of the fastest growing distraction-free platforms for learning and connection. And it's where the magic's happening for the Becoming More Me community as well. Inside, you will find a high vibe circle of heart-centered, ambitious entrepreneurs and professionals doing deep work to become who they truly feel called to be in life, in business, in love, health, and wealth, and doing it in ways that feel aligned, authentic, and full of pleasure. The community is packed with tons of valuable resources too that you can start using right away, as well as guidance to find the ones that are going to help you so that you don't need to waste time. We're talking tools, trainings, and practices to support your growth, all for free. Plus, you can find info on working with me more deeply, whether it's through one-on-one coaching, small group experiences, or the Becoming More Me with EFT program, as well as information on upcoming workshops and other events. To join, head over to school.com/discovery. That's SKOOL.com/discovery type in my name, Theresa Lear Levine, and you will find the Becoming More Me community right there. Click on it to join. I can't wait to welcome you to the community.
Fair? And
Yes.
each day you'll have a different time. So if you get curious, you already started. The second step is to get curious. What's going on? You've got the kid with his headphones who's really hyper focused on and playing with his friends. You've got what are some of the other things? You said they're not there's not a lot of time awareness in the family, so they're
Well, I've
not.
got one that just will like sit on the couch on his phone and he'll be like right there and it's like, come on, like let's go. Okay. Hey, let's see
So
if there's some time longer.
so let's pick one kid because we want to really, because you might want to handle each one differently. So pick one kid.
Okay, so we'll go with the 8-year-old because he can get the most attached to the screens or the whatever he's
Okay.
doing, even if it's like origami or whatever. Like
Right. So he's sitting on this couch on the screen, and what it sounds like you're really talking about is a transition issue. Is how do I
yeah.
help him to transition from his game until okay.
Yep.
So what have you
Very good.
experimented with so far, and what have you learned?
So we have tried, letting him know, hey, we're going to start making dinner now. It's probably going to take about 30 minutes. You've got some time to go play or do an activity or whatever. And we'll let you know when it gets a little bit closer. Okay, okay. And he's usually fine with that. But then when it gets closer to actually having to end what he's going to do and transition, that's where we have trouble. And it's the same thing. It could be the same thing, even not with dinner, but with, hey, it's time to go to soccer practice or something like that, where it's like, it's better to have him have much longer transition periods.
So when he has 30 minutes, he usually does okay. So even at the end of the 30 minutes, if you say, hey, bud, it's been 30 minutes, it's time, you notice that it is okay. Or are you saying that when it gets closer,
It's not always okay.
it's not okay? Okay.
It's not okay.
Right. And so I think that that's the piece of it. What we're really not talking, we're not really talking about getting to the table on time. We're talking about how do we help an 8-year-old transition from a screen into
or another activity. It could be
or
anything.
another
We have
activity,
the same
whatever it is,
issues
right?
with whatever.
Transition,
Yeah.
right? So this is a kid who has it. So transitions require executive function, and we know that kids with ADHD, you told me he has ADHD, are 3 to 5 years behind their peers in terms of executive function. So let's start with what we call the 3 to 5 challenge. So you said he was 8, and if we take 7, 6, 5, 4, and we said, okay, let's make him 4 for a second. What's a realistic expectation for a 4-year-old to move from a really intensive, fun thing to something that maybe is boring or something that's maybe not on his radar or whatever else? I mean, what's your sense of what is the expectation you have right now realistic, or is that part of what might be going on is that it might not be realistic for him to do it independently?
Perhaps it's not realistic for him given like the different diagnoses and things, but it does seem like it's a realistic expectation to me. If he was 4 and I was doing that, I would probably, go let him know that it was time, make sure he shut things down, kind of stay there present with him, and we would go like wash hands together or
well, and
do
that's
something
a
like
great
that.
example. So you're accommodating. So if he's 8 and he's got the executive function of a 4-year-old, you're accommodating that delay by saying, let me help you transition. And so what I think you've said when you were experimenting is you've learned that he needs more support in that transition than just, hey, 30 minutes or hey, 5 minutes or hey, whatever, right? And
Right.
here's
And
and here's what
he
I would
does get more support in the transition, but perhaps it's not the right support. I don't know. I'm not sure where we're
well, I think that
in the boat.
I'm going to go back to what you said about realistic expectations. And Diane's speech on realistic expectations is if they can do it 80% of the time, even when the moon is full or when they're really tired and hungry, then it's a realistic expectation. And if they can't, they need help to accommodate and to learn to get to that level. So I think about it as being stairs, right? So right now he's down here on this step where sometimes he can do it at 30 minutes. Sometimes he can't do it at 30 minutes. Sometimes you have to stand there. Sometimes you not. So we want to meet him there and say, okay, not how do we get him to do this independently, which is like way up here, but we say, what's a little bit more independent? So maybe you come in 2 or 3 times. Maybe when you're first starting, you see what he's watching. I remember my kiddo would watch YouTube videos and we'd have to say, okay, so you have how much time do you have? I have 5 minutes. Okay, so can I help you pick a 3-minute or a 5-minute video. So you're watching the 5-minute video instead of having to interrupt your 20-minute
Right.
video in the middle of it. I mean, so you're really helping externalize navigating the transition from I'm doing this thing. There's a video on our website that's talking about how to transition from technology without meltdowns. And I remember really distinctly, I sat down with my then 12-year-old, and he was a big Destiny guy at the time. He's still a big gamer at 26. And I was like, okay, so show me what it takes to stop playing this game. Like right now, stop playing the game. And he walked me through out loud all the steps he has to take to stop playing the game. And it took him 23 minutes from the time he decided he was going to start stopping to when he was actually done stopping.
Hmm.
Because he had to trade in his skins, and he needed to check in with his friends, and he needed to tell them that they could play tomorrow at 4, and he needed to do, I mean, there were all these things that he needed to do so he didn't lose his progress, so that he knew what his score was, so he could remember tomorrow what he was shooting for. I mean, it's a process to stop doing something. And I was kind of going, well, like you did. Well, I came in and said it's time to stop. My expectation was he could just put down the player and walk away. No, he needed 22 minutes. So once I knew he needed 22 minutes, the process of transitioning
Right.
changes. Does that make sense? And that's a
It
real
makes
high
it makes
level
great
example.
sense. It's actually super helpful. So thanks for
Awesome.
walking me through that,
You're
and we'll see
welcome.
how it works out at dinner time tonight.
There you
And
go.
because it's different, especially with the screen time. I can understand how addictive that is. I'm actually running an entire workshop on that myself next week, more for the ways that it sucks adults in. But
Yeah.
with kids, it's I mean, it's kryptonite. So finding ways to transition off of it. Like I'm already thinking in here. Like in my head as you're talking, I'm like, okay, maybe we should be doing the piano practicing or his violin before dinner, which he enjoys but isn't quite as stuck to doing as a
Well, and
different
that's another
activity.
piece to throw in a strategy here. When we're trying to transition from something really exciting to something really boring, it's it makes it really difficult for particularly an ADHD brain, because trying to do something that's boring or uninteresting is really hard. You know that as
Oh
an
yeah,
adult, right?
absolutely.
And so sometimes it's, transitioning from the really compelling thing to something that's fun. It's
Hmm.
like the sort of, you could create, I'm just making this up, but you could create a ritual where everybody did a dance party before you sat down at the table. And so it's like, hey, we don't want to be late for dance party. Come on, let's go. And so then everybody's in the kitchen, you're having a great time, you're banging on the pots and pans, whatever you're doing. But the point is that you're trying to move them from something that's challenging to transition off it to something that's fun.
Yeah. No, great ideas. Definitely appreciate all of those. And we'll find ways to get curious about how we can switch things up in the areas that can be a little bit stickier or more challenging for sure. Hey, quick pause to let you in on something you might not know. You know, you can book a totally free, no pressure 15-minute insight call with me. Yep, just you and me chatting about the real life stuff that's feeling heavy or unclear or stuck in your world right now. Whether that's in your business, your body, your relationships, your energy, all of the above, maybe. We'll explore what's really going on beneath the surface, and I will share a few personalized insights to help you start moving towards the outcomes you truly desire and get out of your own way with clarity, peace, momentum, and abundance. Just go to gamechangingconversation.com and grab a time that works for you. I can't wait to connect with you and hold space for your next breakthrough. All right, let's get back to the episode.
Well, and the
So,
thing, Teresa, because you've got 4 of them and they're all different, the more you can talk to them and say, let's try some things out. Even if they can't come, sometimes kids can come up with great ideas, and sometimes they're like, I don't know. But if you involve them in the process of saying, well, let's over the next 3 weeks try 3 different things to see if it makes it easier, then we're involving them in the process and we're collaborating with them, which gives them more agency and more ownership and buy-in.
absolutely. I have found that that's very helpful. I always ask the older kids and even the 8-year-old at this point, what would be helpful or how he would like to transition or how they would like to handle things that are happening at school or in other areas of their personal lives or whatever else. And I do think that that's definitely appreciated
Yeah.
as they're getting older because I do want them to be empowered and to have more agency to be able to speak for themselves and know what works for them because it's fun to be able to get creative too, I think,
Yeah.
with kids that have ADHD. And even just the kind of things like before we hit record for this episode, you and I were setting our timers for making sure that we didn't, go over or whatever else. And we had two very different ways of looking at time and that kind of stuff. I've noticed with my own kids too. So you wanted a timer that counted up, which had more of like a growing spaciousness to it. And I use a timer that counts down, the time timer, where its little pie starts to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And you said that stresses you out.
It stresses me out. Like the it's getting smaller and smaller. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I done? It's like that sort of pressure to finish. So
Yeah.
I'm sitting here looking, I can see how long it's been. I have a fair amount of time awareness, but I'm managing any potential overwhelm or stress by saying, I don't want to, it stresses me out to watch that little thing close up, but you love it because you're like, okay, I got to manage that.
I can do it. So yeah, but two very different ways that our brains are perceiving that or feeling, threatened by it or whatever else.
Well, and then I think what's one of the things that's important about that, Teresa, that I want to pull out for everybody listening is that the things that work for us may not work for our kids. And it doesn't mean we don't have great ideas, but I hear so many well-meaning parents going, if you would just, you wouldn't have this trouble. And sometimes it's that simple, but oftentimes it's not that simple. I had one kid who, you know, everybody in third grade used to get planners. I think they probably still do, right? It's just sort of, and he was just not a planner kid. And
Yeah.
and teachers would be like, well, if you just use your planner, it's like, well, he needed to come up with other ways to capture assignments because the planner was just really, really hard. And so instead of trying to push him into that box, we're like, okay, well, so can we get permission for you to take a picture of the board with your phone, so that you have at least the assignments there? Or can we have a buddy that you call that will give you the assignments if you happen to miss one of them? Or, those sorts of things. So you get creative about this and you come to them, your kids, to solve a problem rather than coming to them with a solution.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that also. And I think that even when your solutions might work really well for your kids, they might just not want to do them because it's what you do. So
Or it's your advice. I mean, it's a sort of, I don't want mom. I want advice from everybody other than mom or
the
dad, right?
resistance is real because otherwise I would be having my kids tapping or utilizing more hypnotherapy or visualization processes and things like that. But nobody wants to do what mom's doing. So it's funny
Sure.
though, because I see them as they get older coming around to that on their own conclusions. And it's like, all right, cool. But
Yeah, well,
in due time.
and at some point we pray for that moment where they go, "Mom, I really appreciate that you that you did X, Y, and Z," instead of, blaming you for everything, which is what they do when they're teens
And
and
that's okay too.
tweens. Sure.
I can
It's
take it all with a
absolutely
grain of
true.
salt at this point, but it
Absolutely.
is cool to see them come around to those kind of things on their own conclusions. But
Yeah.
yeah, so where can people find out more about what you do and find some of these amazing resources like the ones that you mentioned?
Oh, awesome. So, you're listening to a podcast. Our podcast is called Parenting with Impact. You can find it on almost any podcast player that you're on. Our company's name is Impact Parents. Our website is impactparents.com. And there's lots of free resources as well as we do parent training and coaching. We do regular webinars, and I have a lot of resources that are available for parents of what we call complex kids. So parents of kids with ADHD, anxiety, learning differences, all kinds of things.
Wow,
We
that's
always
amazing.
say, if you have a complex kid, you know it.
I don't think I don't know of any kids that I feel are simple. So I feel
Fair
like there's
enough.
a lot of
Fair
complex
enough.
kids running around out there. And I'm grateful to, mother four of them. I don't think I'd have it any other way. I absolutely love it. So
It's
thank
fun.
you for everything that you do to take a little bit of the complexity out of it and help it make sense. I hope that my dinner time challenges resonate with anybody who's listening today and maybe gives you some areas to get creative or choose a little bit differently around your next meal that you're going to have together as a family. And just thank you so much for being here today, Diane.
Well, thanks for having me, Teresa.
Absolutely. And for all of you who tuned in, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Becoming More Me. I know you have so many choices when it comes to podcasts and really appreciate you spending some of your time with us. And if you loved what you heard, please help spread the knowledge with a friend or a fellow parent navigating complexities of raising complex kids. Leave us a review or a comment wherever you're listening, or tag us on social media when you share what you're listening or how it helped you. And until next time, keep getting present and becoming more you. Thanks for spending some of your precious time with me today. If you loved this episode, please leave a review or simply share it with someone else who would get great benefit from it too. If you share on social media, please tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. And if your inner critic is still trying to argue with those facts, hit me up. We've got work to do.